All right, I'm here with Dr. Ken Berry. He's the guy that basically saved my life. And we are now here at Keto Pa-Louza
Yes.
and talking about all things keto, carnivore. So, the one thing I would like to know, like, what are your future plans on? You already have the Mighty Network, you have the YouTube channel, you're reaching tons of people. I
Yeah.
mean, probably millions of people. But what are your plans for the future?
Well, our plans are to keep doing what we're doing because, as you know, Roxana, there's millions of people out there that now know the power of a ketogenic diet or the power of a carnivore diet, what we call a proper human diet.
Yes.
And those people teach people. When you see a friend or a neighbor lose 100 pounds and reverse type 2 diabetes, you can't not pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go, wait, you did what? What happened to you? And so just the human curiosity of what somebody did to be so much healthier now. It didn't involve injections or pills or supplements. It's just you just changed your food and it literally transformed your life. That's so interesting. And if somebody's not interested in that, I don't know what they would be interested in. And so our plan is to just keep doing more of what we've been doing. We're thinking about maybe some kind of documentary where we take 4 or 5 people and just happen to them over a month or two and document that journey so that people can watch it and see it literally happen. I think that would be a very powerful intervention for people. But just to keep encouraging people to fix your own health by eating a proper human diet, and then teach your friends and family how to do that. And then that just keeps repeating and rippling through society. And I think eventually that's going to reach everyone. And you know, it may be some people it takes longer than others,
Yes.
but eventually we're going to reach everybody like that.
So when you say proper human diet, for people who are new to this, what do you mean about what is a proper human diet?
So a proper human diet is basically my years of study, not only in medicine and nutrition, but also in archaeology, anthropology, and paleoanthropology. Turns out that in archaeology, anthropology, and paleoanthropology circles, it's well known and well documented that before 12,800 years ago, humans ate a meat-heavy, super carnivore diet, meaning that at least 70% of their nutrition each day came from animal products, meat, effectively. And of course they ate plants and vegetables and seeds and nuts and berries when they were available and when they couldn't get meat. But on a daily basis, they ate as much meat as they could stuff in their mouth because that's the most nutrient-dense, ancestrally appropriate, uninflammatory food on the planet. And so I think that people get so romantic about modern society. Oh, we're so modern. I've got an iPhone 15. I've got this and this. And it's fine to live a modern life. It's fine to enjoy the accoutrement of modern society. But when it comes to what you put in your body,
Mm-hmm.
you should breathe ancient air, the cleanest air you possibly can. You should drink the most pristine, ancestrally appropriate water that you should.
Get some sunlight.
It shouldn't be full of glyphosate. It shouldn't be full of other chemicals from the chemical companies. That's not what you should drink. You should get out in the morning sun. You should walk barefoot on the ground, and you should eat a proper human diet, which mimics the diet that we ate more than 15,000 years ago. And it's full of fatty meat, eggs with the yolk. It's very low in carbohydrates. It's very uninflammatory. And it's nutrient dense. So that's the criteria. And so my definition of food, I found out on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
My definition of food differs from many dietitians and doctors. And this guy said, well, why do you say that Rice Krispie treats are not real food? How can you even say that's idiotic? And I was like, well, what's your definition of food? And he said, something with calories.
Oh, okay.
And this is a registered dietitian.
Yeah.
Something with anything with calories is food. And I'm like, well, that's not my definition of food. My definition of food is something that contains adequate amounts of amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, that does not contain any slow poisons. That is a food that we've been eating for more than 12,000 years, and that is very nutrient dense, and that is uninflammatory. That's my definition of food. Food should nourish you without causing problems.
That will be my definition too. People on Twitter, though, or Facebook for that matter, will say, well, it's all fine eating that food.
Sure.
But people back then only got 30, 35 years old.
That was their life expectancy. And the reason for their life expectancy being so low was because of the childbirth deaths. They didn't have obstetricians back then. And human beings, we are the mammal that has the most trouble with childbirth out of any mammal. And it's because we evolved our head so big so quickly that our pelvis didn't have time to catch up. But also the infections more than 15,000 years ago and the trauma more than 15,000 years ago. That is what left us with a life expectancy of 35 years. If you factor out the childbirth deaths and the trauma deaths and the infection deaths and just say how long do people live, they live just as long then as we do now.
The lifespan.
The
basically
lifespan
never changed.
it has not changed in probably 100,000 years. If you take out all of the stuff that living in the wilderness basically sticks you with. Infection, falling out of a tree, being eaten by a saber-tooth, or dying in childbirth. Because modern society, like I said earlier, you want the benefits of modern society if you're in labor. You want to at least have access to obstetrical services in case you need them so you don't die in childbirth.
Yes.
Like many of our ancestors did. And you also, if you get impaled by a tree limb, you want access to modern medicine. If you get a severe infection, you want access to antibiotics. But when it comes to the food you eat, the water you drink, the air you breathe, the lifestyle you live, you want that to mimic what this DNA is looking for. And this DNA has not changed in 100,000 years. We're still looking for the same food. And when you feed us that food and you avoid all the slow poisons that come from the big food manufacturers, our health goes back to the default state, which is healthy.
So you said that that food is anti-inflammatory. So the most anti-inflammatory food.
Uninflammatory. And so for some people, they can eat 5 pounds of broccoli a day. And it doesn't seem to cause any inflammation whatsoever. Other people, they can eat one bite of broccoli and immediately they have bloating and gas, and maybe their joints ache, maybe their skin flares up, maybe they're cloudy. And so there's a normal distribution curve for every single thing with regards to human physiology. And some people are much more sensitive to plants and the anti-nutrients that plants contain than other people. Some people can eat them just fine. For me, it's all about the carbohydrate count. If I eat too many carbohydrates, I'll start to gain weight and I'll start to become pre-diabetic. Other people, they can eat up to 100 total grams of carbs a day. It doesn't bother them a bit. But if they eat corn or if they eat wheat, they immediate inflammation. And it manifests itself different for different people. And so the two things you're fighting by eating a proper human diet is you're fighting too many carbohydrates and you're fighting the chronic inappropriate inflammation that comes for some people eating certain plant foods.
So this would be the best diet for autoimmune issues.
Absolutely.
Like arthritis, Hashimoto, all these.
Yeah, and so if anybody's suffering from an autoimmune condition, you need to start with a carnivore diet, which is on the far end of the proper human diet spectrum. Zero carb, but also much less inflammatory than a ketogenic diet, still including lots of vegetables and nuts. And then once you've got your autoimmune condition either in remission or much better control, you can start to experiment. Like, I love cashews, Roxana. Maybe I'm going to try a few and see what happens. You can start to experiment and you'll find a list of foods that need to be on your no-go list and a list of foods that don't seem to cause inflammation and thus a flare-up of the autoimmune condition.
So what is so bad about wheat? People say it's the ancestral humans have always eaten it. I know it's not true.
But you saw that on Twitter just the other day,
yes.
right? Yeah, I'm like, actually, no. Humans have only been eating wheat and other grains in quantity. Now, I'm not saying our ancestors never ate it, but in quantity, like your daily wheat ration or portion, that only started 6, 7, 8,000 years ago, depending on where you lived in the world. And I'm actually rereading a book right now called Against the Grain. And if any of you guys really enjoy archaeology and anthropology and how we kind of evolved as a species, I highly recommend that book. You may be shocked and you may be angry after you listen to that book. I'm sorry if the truth hurts. But basically, we like to say we domesticated wheat and we domesticated this and and actually the reverse is probably true. Wheat, rice, oats, and corn have
Domesticated
basically,
us.
they domesticated us, and they have addicted us to a slave prisoner diet that keeps us sick and inflamed and fat and pre-diabetic. But they rule the earth. How many millions of acres are there right now of wheat, rice, oats, and corn? They domesticated us because we're basically slaves. We have to eat their products, and we have to plant them and keep their species propagated so that we can have our fix.
When I think about wheat, I see these Egyptian statues,
Yeah.
and all of them have that wheat belly.
Yep.
And
keep in mind, they were not eating modern GMO wheat. They were eating ancient emmer wheat. Organic, non-GMO emmer wheat.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of people say, oh, well, it's because of that modern GMO wheat. No, that's actually worse than emmer wheat, but that doesn't make emmer wheat good. Emmer wheat is still a starvation food. You feed that to prisoners and slaves, and it keeps people from starving to death quite well, but if you eat too much of it too regularly, you develop inflammation and you develop visceral adiposity. This is well documented even in Egyptian archaeology. If you look at their day-to-day statues, they all had man boobs and a little belly. And if you look at their mummies, they had disastrous dentition. Their dental health was atrocious. They all had coronary artery disease. They all had osteoporosis or osteopenia. And it's because they're eating a nutrient deficient, inflammatory, high carbohydrate diet. So the ancient Egyptian diet, if you look at what they ate, and we can tell from stable isotope analysis and from their documents exactly what they ate on a daily basis, it is exactly the diet that the USDA recommends. The My Plate diet, it's exactly the same diet.
5 to 7 servings of grains.
Yeah.
Then the 5 servings of fruit.
And avoid fatty red meat because they didn't eat cows. They used cows to do work.
Yes.
Right? They ate a little bit of fish and a little bit of poultry, and they did. Remember, sugar hadn't even been invented yet.
Mm-hmm.
The only sugar they got was from honey or from berries, stuff like that. There was no sugar back then, yet their teeth were atrocious.
There was no ultra-processed food.
No ultra-processed.
Like right now, talk about ultra-processed food in the stores. I think it's like 80% in the stores is ultra-processed.
Yeah, and so the average American diet that the average American eats is a ultra-processed plant-based diet.
Yes.
And when you say that, a lot of times people are like, I don't eat plant-based. I'm like, yeah, you do. Add up over the course of the week how much meat, how many eggs you eat, and you'll be like, oh, 70% of my food is plant-based. Yeah.
Oreos, potato chips, popcorn.
Sure. Yeah.
And popcorn is hailed as the
macaroni and cheese, spaghetti, blah, blah, blah. It's just you're literally living on a starvation prisoner-slave diet that's a plant-based diet. You're already doing that. And then people will talk about, oh, the World Health Organization wants us to this. It's like, dude, you're already doing it, and they haven't even forced you to do it. Why are you eating a plant-based diet? And that freaks people out when you say that. But then when they go home and they add it up, they're like, crap, I am eating a plant-based diet already. Maybe that's the cause of their prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. Maybe that's the cause of their obesity. Maybe that's the cause of your hypertension. Maybe that's the cause of your arthritis. Stop eating the inflammatory grains. Stop eating the inflammatory fat-producing sugars, and stop eating the inflammatory vegetable seed oils. That's step 1, 2, and 3.
But when people go to the doctor, they have hypertension, they have diabetes, they have maybe heart disease or kidney disease or liver disease. Yep. The doctor will say the opposite of what you say now.
That's right. Yeah.
And then
the doctor also acts like each one of those things is a different malady. When in fact they're just different manifestations of the same two things, which are hyperinsulinemia and chronic inappropriate inflammation. Yep. That's it. And so when you understand that, when you get that one key and say, okay, well, if Dr. Berry's right, then if I eat a diet that lowers my insulin level and lowers my levels of inflammation, then all that other stuff ought to go away. And indeed, in many cases, we see that type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, hypertension, obesity, and a host of other things, including mental health things, get better or go completely away. When you eat a diet that lowers your insulin and lowers your CRP, your SED rate, your homocysteine, your ferritin levels, everything goes back to normal. And the default setting for humans is good health. That's how we're programmed to be healthy.
Yes, that's what many people don't think about.
Right.
Aging or like all these diseases are not normal normal symptom of aging.
That's right. That's right. There are, aging is a thing. Aging does happen, absolutely.
Yes.
But the degree of aging that you see people in their 40s and 50s who look 60 and 70.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal aging. Okay, that's chronic disease taking a toll on their body. Their body that should be enjoying good physical and mental health is aging prematurely because of all the slow poison crap that they're putting in their body that was sold to them as healthy by the big food corporations.
So what do you tell people who say, well, I would like to do keto, but I can't be that restrictive, and I have to have my cake, and cake is life, and
I would say, look, you're a grown human. You can do whatever you want to do. If you're not sick and tired of being sick and tired, then keep eating your cake and your cereal. It's fine. But when you're ready to, and maybe they'll see a relative who's literally transformed their life, or maybe they'll watch some of your videos and be like, the Roxana before versus the Roxana of now. Oh my God, how do I get that? Well, you got to put down the cereal and the cake to get the health benefits that Roxana and I enjoy every day. It's just part of our everyday life now. We don't even have to think about it. And when somebody says to you, oh, keto's so restrictive, I always say, well, actually being severely obese and pre-diabetic, that was pretty restrictive. My severe knee arthritis that I limped around like an old man, that was pretty restrictive. My severe heartburn, that was very restrictive. I don't feel restricted now at all.
well,
what about you?
I would say carrying 120 more pounds.
That was pretty restrictive,
That was
wasn't it?
restrictive because when I went up the staircase, I was huffing and puffing. Having to take insulin shots, it's restrictive.
It's very restrictive, yeah.
Battling with chronic inflammation is very restrictive. It's painful.
Absolutely.
So, my mantra is nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
100%.
I don't see,
But,
I think cake is life.
So
I think
a lot of
health is
people
life.
haven't been healthy in so long. When you say nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels, I don't think they even remember what it feels like to be healthy. They've forgotten that it's been so many decades.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's great to have examples like you and other people running around in the community going, look, I used to be this, now I'm this. You can do that too.
No, you settle for a certain bar.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you should feel like this and you feel like this all the time, then you think, okay, this is going to be it.
Yeah, but if you feel like this every day, you forget
How
that this is
feels.
even an option.
Yeah,
You
and
forget that.
you can still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I find the same thing, and I think we covered a lot of topics.
Absolutely. And we'll cover more in the future because
We
you're
will.
doing great work, and I'm going to support you every step of the way because you're literally changing the health of the world doing what you do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.